so I'm going to make sure I read it to make sure I get it correct. She is the district-wide lead instructional advisor. Works with teaching and learning. And we have Tim Hilborn, who is the superintendent of Highland School District, just north of Columbus. And we'll let them give a little overview of what's happening in their districts. And then we have some questions, and this is your session. So at any time, if we don't hit the questions I pre-made, that's fine. Your questions are more important than anything that we did here today. So feel free to raise your hand and jump in.
Hi, everyone. We've got the air conditioner working right behind me, so I'll try not to let that interfere. But it's good to be with you today. I'm Kim Halley. I'm with Pickerington Local Schools. And Pickerington is a suburban district here in the central Ohio area. We currently serve about 11,000 students, and we have 14 buildings, K through 12. Our structure is organized K4 buildings, and then grades 5 and 6 are in buildings, and then 7, 8, and then 9, 12. So in the past 10 or 15 years, we've been a very rapidly growing school district. We are a high-achieving district. We've earned excellent with distinction in the last several years. So that's really something for us to be proud about. However, we know that we have lots of work to do ahead of us with the 21st Century Initiative. Just to give a very brief history of the work that our district has done so far, it's kind of comforting for me to hear the journey that Upper Arlington has gone through, as opposed to maybe some of the other districts that we heard about earlier in the day that have been engaged in the work for, say, 5 years, because I can get kind of overwhelmed there at the end of presentations hearing about, very extensive rubrics created in every single subject area, in every grade level, and assessments already being created, and complete overhauls of curriculum. And we're not there yet as a district, but we are following a very similar path to Upper Arlington, in fact. I would say our work started at the beginning of this school year, maybe September or early October, where we developed a 9-member district leadership team that really started pulling our thoughts together about what is 21st century classrooms? What are 21st century learners? What are those skills? It's one of those trite phrases we often say and hear, but when you really start thinking about what does that look like in a classroom, it's really challenging work. So our 9-member district leadership team consists of the Department of Teaching and Learning, but it's also led by our superintendent, Dr. Karen Mantilla, our director of technology, and we have special education representatives as well. But probably our biggest champion for 21st century skills is the president of our Teachers Association, who's right in there working right along with us to offer that teacher's perspective. So in the fall, we started discussion about the 21st Century Initiative in our district and what that means for us. In January of this year, we went to the 21st Century Partnership for 21st Century Professional Development Affiliate Training in Nashville, Tennessee. 3-day training, we took our entire team, and again, we interfaced with other districts in other states, and in fact, other professional development providers across the country. And we have a Ming side where we can communicate and share ideas that we also have that opportunity to use as well. During this whole time, we have been working on our district strategic plan to try to get it to really capture what we want the daily work in every single classroom, in every single building to look like. And I was happy to hear that you had 4 iterations of your plan. I think we had more than that before it even got the thumbs up from our superintendent, because she kept challenging us to go back to the drawing board and capture the perfect graphic. But we think we've got it now. So we have shared that district strategic plan with our administrators. We received feedback from them about the wording and how it resonated with them. We went back, we tweaked it again, and we have just now started to share that out with teacher leadership groups across the district. In addition to that, our superintendent has invited a select group of teachers to come in and start having dialogue about what skills do you think students need for the 21st century to prepare them for their future, and how are we doing as a school district? What kind of professional development do you need to make that happen in your classroom, and how should we deliver that as a district? In addition, she brought in students at the secondary level to ask them the same kinds of questions. And they had some very insightful pieces of information for us. So all of that information has helped guide our work, but we're probably most excited about our community education forum, very similar to your advisory group that we brought in last week, 83 members of our staff and community representing the local universities, the medical profession. It was really exciting to look across the audience and see quite a bit of diversity in the crowd, and that was really what we were working for. We wanted to have different perspectives, and over time we're going to use that group to help us determine exactly what skills we are going to be focusing on as a district. So that's where we are at this point.
We'll kind of work backwards. Our high school principal actually came to us from Florida. You know, you'd say, why would a person from Florida come all the way to Sparta, Ohio? We thought the same thing. So we flew to Florida over a weekend one time, or a Monday, so we could see if he was the real deal or not. And when we walked into his school as an assistant principal, we knew he was the real deal. And what was happening at that school was an academy system where kids were building skills for real life. And through the mentality that this man had, and he brought to Highland from a very traditional high school, we now have 58% of our kids, juniors and seniors, earning college credit right now. My son entered the University of Dayton with 21 hours. There's nothing for our kids to have 32, 64 hours of college credit. And we did that through dual enrollment and getting our teachers to be adjunct professors, through the seniors to sophomores program, through PSEO, any way we could. We tried to reduce the cost of college so that then our leverage to try to get more kids to go to college would work. Now, how do we do that? Well, once again, now you start getting into the 21st century skills and getting your hands on things and changing things. So as we developed a program for a new high school, we thought about 3 foundational questions. The first question is, I guess not questions, points, that students should be able to ask and be asked questions. And then we said, what does that look like? Well, most of us in here, we know what that looked like when we were in school. It was the teacher asking the question, and us raising our hands. And every once in a while, us raising our hands, and she'll say, it'll be okay. So students should be able to ask and be asked questions. Now, what does that look like in our current world? When students ask a question, where do they ask it? They're not asking you, and they're not asking the teacher. The first thing they're going to do is Google it. Somehow, some way, some way. So students need to be able to ask and be asked questions. 2, students need to seek answers. What does that look like? Well, once again, when we went to school, it looked a lot different than what it looks like today. And the policies and the handcuffs we put on kids as they seek answers are appalling to me. So we're attacking those challenges. And thirdly, then we want kids to be able to present their answers. And what's that going to look like? It's not going to look like a bubble test, a true and false test, or anything else. It's going to look like presentations. So when we designed the high school, we designed it in mind with large group settings, 300 or 400 kids at a time. Now, we only have 500 kids in our high school. We only have 1,900 kids in our school district. 300 or 400 kids in a group setting, or a regular classroom setting, or a miniature setting where there's 5 or 8 kids together. So we have extended learning areas with movable walls, so that if we wanted 60, 80, 100 kids in one group, we could just move some walls, or we could close it down and groups of 6 or 8 kids can meet and present in the smaller areas. With that said, then we also then started creating the academies. Through the Ohio School Facilities Commission, we were lucky enough to be able to get geothermal energy at each of our buildings. through that same process where we had some luck, we've also started to negotiate terms for 2 wind generating plants.
Study Council of Ohio was present at our community meeting last week. They were taking notes on what the community was, what the thoughts being generated were. They're writing an executive summary. So as soon as that is done, we will send that out to our community members that were there with a lovely thank you, just valuing their participation and letting them know that, you know, we were thankful that they were present. Another thing that we did find is that we had lots of folks come up afterwards just with so much enthusiasm and, you know, just encouraging us, you know, thank you for starting this and please involve me in future meetings.
Okay. As we wrap up, one of the questions I asked the panel was, if you're giving some advice, just helping your fellow administrator out as they get started in this, what resources would you suggest to them? I know in Arlington we've read some books and we've shared. One of the first things when I went up to Highland this past winter is when I met Tim, 2 of the books that were sitting there already, and I already knew when I walked in, I like this guy, because of two of the books I had just finished. So as some closing comments, what resources would you suggest to the other administrators and teachers in the room, and any closing comments you have for the group?
In my laptop case, I put books today instead of a laptop. Millennials is a really good read. It's very quick. You can see it's very thin. It just takes you about an hour or so. And it really gives people a good foundation of what the kids' needs are for what it is that we're doing. It's called Millennials K-12 School Educational Strategies for a New Generation. So it talks about the different generations. I already told you about the Trilling book. A real good starter for people wanting to know why is the Global Achievement Gap. And then a brand new book out from Solution Tree, and we've done a lot of work with PLCs. If you're familiar with any of the Do4 books, this is a similar one in format, 21st Century Skills, Rethinking How Students Learn, and Ken Kay has done the introduction. And then I also put down websites, but Ken gave you all those this morning.
Some of the resources that we have found helpful have actually been shared earlier today. The Partnership for 21st Century Skills website, the P21, we have used that. The Mile Guide, the self-assessment that Kim referred to, our district leadership team used that as a way of assessing where we are on the continuum of providing 21st century learning opportunities for students. Certainly the Rainbow Framework that Kelly mentioned, we have used that as a starting point for us. Catalina Foothills, many of you got to hear Mary Jo Connery. We heard her through SSCO earlier in the year, as well as Enrico County in California, or Virginia. The West Virginia State Education website is very helpful as well. And those were the big resources.